A broader unhappy reality brought about this great parade in Barcelona. Stalin was pulling out the international brigades. 2 months before, in September 1938, he'd watched Chamberlain and Daladier hand over Czechoslovakia to Hitler. Clearly he couldn't look to Britain and France for any real support against Germany. He began to stand his old foreign policy on its head, and in a year was to feign new friendship with Hitler. Amid a great new hooing and hawing about non-intervention, the brigades were withdrawn. They marched as though they had been victorious.
We marched through the center of the city. The crowd was wild with delight. Girls rushed out to kiss the international brigaders. Unfortunately, no one except a middle-aged man came out and kissed me. That was my reward.
Thousands of those marchers had no homes, and many, like the anti-fascist Germans, had no countries to go back to. The Republic, though not by their going alone, was doomed.
Standing next to me was an Irish boy, and this priest started to speak to us. I remember his first words were, "Hermano míos," my brothers, mine. After that I lost the crux of it. I didn't know a lot of Spanish. But this Irish boy did, and he got in a real temper. And I said, "What's the matter?" I said, "What is he saying?" He just said, Tommy, he said, "My brother's mine. If I had my way with you, I'd machine gun a lot of him." And I said, "There's a priest of all things." Well, he finished his sermon, and afterwards I spoke to this Irish boy, and he broke down and cried. And he said, "I finished now." I said, "Finished with what?" "Finished with religion," he said. I said, "You what? You're a Catholic, aren't you?" "A Catholic don't finish just like that." After what I heard today, he said, "I don't want no more to do with it," he said. No, I said, "No, look, pal, I'm not a goody-goody in any way. I'm a churchman," I said, "but don't throw your religion or your belief away because of one man. He's only a man." I said, "Your Christianity is a far bigger thing than what he is."
Following the death sentence, I was put in the death cells at Saragossa, and there were about 12 in a room. And at dawn on each morning, one would be taken out. Sometimes they'd pass a few mornings, but other cells, from the other cells, they would be taken out to be shot. And we knew how many had been shot because on the nights that people had been taken out, we used to be very much awake, and the sparrows would play on the cell bars outside and on the windowsill, and we used to watch the sparrows because that's the only object the only things we could see, and watch them copulating, if you like. And we used to count the number of times, and they used to go up to 14 times. But when the volleys of rifle fire, as a result of shooting of the prisoners from the prison, we used to be able to count the number of people that had been shot. The sparrows would rise up from the windowsill each time, because they used to take the prisoners some distance from the prison, but obviously the sparrows could hear the shots, and they used to rise from the windowsill so many times, sometimes 5, 6, to up to 12 at a time. Well, you couldn't be shot when you wanted to. You had to wait your turn. So I was in death cells for about 2 or 3 months, and I was writing letters from the prison on cigarette paper. Some of the prisoners were getting food baskets in, and the labels would open, and they used to put the letters, the secret letters from the prison in these handles and in these labels. They were wooden labels, and eventually one letter got home to say that I was alive, that I was under sentence of death. And then the British Embassy got busy, and the campaign in the House of Commons and they got my death sentence commuted to 30 years imprisonment. I was taken from Saragossa to the penitentiary of Burgos to serve my 30 years. It was a better prison. It was a prison built for about 500, but there were 7,500 in it. Here there were 600 people under the death penalty, and in the 12 months I was at Burgos, the 600 were wiped out either by the firing squad or by garroting. And garroting is a terrible thing. The judge would order the man to be garroted once, twice, or 3 times. They sit you on a chair with a kind of wooden block at the back and turn the tourniquet on your neck. And when you were just about to die, they'd unscrew it again. They'd do that 2 or 3 times. One of the prisoners in our cell was a rice farmer. He had been accused of killing 25 civil guards. Well, he was a tall man, a big man, and privately I'd spoken to him. He'd never killed anybody. He was a successful rice farmer, but the local fascists were jealous of his success, and they accused him of being a Republican supporter, and there had been some killings there, and they put the blame on him. So he was charged with all this, and the morning they came to fetch him to shoot him, he made a speech in the cell, but he was such a dignified man, the guards didn't touch him, and I expected them to hit him, but they didn't. They used to hit the others with rifle butts, and he shouted, "Down with the fascists, Butcher Franco," before going.
Things were a bit different at the concentration camp in the Abbey at San Pedro de Cardeña, as Marion Morgan remembers.
The sergeants were a particularly vicious lot and seemed to get all their pleasure out of treating the prisoners. But all those people below the rank of sergeants were decent chaps, the guards and the corporals. There was one corporal in particular, a villainous-looking creature. He was so ugly that when he was born, it said his mother would rather keep the stalk. But he was the salt of the earth. Whenever any of our people were taken to the calaboose, which is a prison within prisons, where you slept without a blanket or mattress or food or water for 5 days, he always made a point of taking food and mattresses to these people. And later on, when we formed classes in the school, in the prison, he would then go into Burgos and buy all the equipment he needed, books and pencils and pens and chalk. And he also bought tobacco for us without making a profit for himself. Compelled to live in one single room month after month after month, we saw very rapid deterioration in the sanity of the men there. So we decided to run as many classes as we could. Initially, we formed language classes, teaching the simple elements of Spanish or English, the case may be. And we utilized the experience and the situations we found in the camp. For example, when we dealt with verbs, we'd say, for example, I am a prisoner, you are a prisoner, he is a prisoner, and so on. I have lice, you have lice, he has lice, she has no lice, and on like this. And then later on, we had more advanced classes. We had there with us about 50 people who were graduates of university, and then we had lectures on physics and chemistry, geography, economics, mathematics, wireless telegraphy, architecture, the whole shoot. And this did help to stop what we called the demoralization of the people.
At the outset, prisoners in San Pedro weren't allowed much communication with home. When mail started getting through from Britain, it brought cash, but often it brought, too, false hopes of early release.
My people at home had a very, very close contact with the local MP, who kept up a contact with the War Office, and as a result, all the information that I got about our condition was actually factual. And very soon, people got so fed up with these contradictory reports saying that we've been released in a month and we are still there after 2 months, that they then started disbelieving all these optimistic reports. And after a while, everyone was delighted when I got a letter, all the nationalities. And once they heard my name, they said, well, now we'll have a gem. Either we're stuck here or there's a chance of moving. And also, I think we had a lot of fun too from letters. There's one lovely story about one man, he had a letter from his mother saying, "Dear Di, your sister's going to have a baby very soon. Hurry up and come home for the wedding."